Hey there, guys. It's Landry here with the Small Wrestling Alliance giving you my review of the December 6th episode of NXT and to tell you if it was worth it. Anyways, we start off the night with a little backstage segment from William Regal, the general manager, and he's announcing a small tournament. And this will be to pick the number one contenders for the NXT Championship. As I said in the War Games review, Drew McIntyre got injured, arm injury, so they had to find the new number one contender. So they're gonna have a tournament consisting of 4 matches, and the winner of each one of those matches is gonna face off in a fatal 4-way match, and that's gonna decide the number one contenders. We have 2 of those matches this week, 2 of them next week. So anyways, now we get to the actual show itself. We start off with a promo from Adrian Almas, accompanied by his manager, Zelina Vega. And it's just not very good. I mean, he didn't really even have much to say. I don't know if it's bad writing or if he just kind of made it up on the spot and just didn't have anything, but it was mostly repeating, I'm the champion, and I told you, and I injured Drew McIntyre, and just repeating and yelling that a lot. And, Zelina really didn't have anything to add on that, really, and it was just not very good. I mean, I guess it gets some heat, but not really the heat you want. But, anyways, let's hope that his matches in the future will be much better. I do want to point out Malla Ranallo, still great commentator, but as I said in last week's review, the script type mandates that they have really hurt him, and one of them is when Adrian Almas and Zelina is coming out, that he's saying it may be close to winter, but it's Cinco de Mayo to them, and it's like, oh yeah, because they're Mexican. Well, such a weird and offensive thing. But yeah, and there's some other part later when they're talking about Zelina and being like how important she is to Adrian Almas getting this championship, and once again those mandates of be relevant and stuff pops up when he has the reference. I think it was the Forbes 30 under 30, and saying that she was this close to getting to that. And it's like, I don't know who's that for. I don't know if anyone's like who reads Forbes is gonna hear, oh, NXT referenced Forbes. I better watch that. Anyways, as a whole, that segment wasn't worth it. Then we get to a backstage segment. Yeah, we go for a lot of talking here before we actually get to our matches. But anyways, we go to a backstage segment where they have this fake press conference set up. I don't know why they do that instead of just a normal interview. It's weird, and they had Lars Sullivan, who's going to be one of the contenders in the tournament, who's going to be competing next week. They were asking him about Roderick Strong, who's his opponent in that match. And I'll say this, when you have monster heels like that, it's really better to just have them talk very little. It takes away from the mystique when they really talk a lot. Yeah, I mean, you look at a lot of great monster character types, like a lot of the Undertaker. He just kind of comes out and says, "You will rest in peace," or Kane. And he, for a long time, when he first came out in the mask, I don't think he talked. It took him a long time before that. They normally have managers, but still keeping them kind of silent. Braun Strowman's another example of that. Brock Lesnar, not really talking that much, just kind of come out, let Paul Heyman speak. Just keep that mystique. Goldberg, just come out and be like, "Who's next?" And, that's all he needs to say. They should really think that with Lars Sullivan, because like I said, takes away from the mystique partially, and the other part is he kind of has a lisp, and he's not necessarily a bad speaker, but he's not necessarily super intimidating, you know. So I think it would have been better if they were just like Roderick Strong and it's like he's a dead man next week, or something like that. Just something quick and simple, and then just leave it. So I didn't think the segment was worth it. Then we get to our first match, and that was the first match of the tournament. You had Trent Seven versus Killian Dane, and I will say this: I really feel that the people backstage really like Killian Dane, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up getting a call up to the main roster alone and without Sanity, because he ends up kind of getting, I don't know, I don't know what to say, pushed, but a lot more attention. He got a lot more attention at War Games. He already made a solo appearance in last year's Andre the Giant Battle Royale at WrestleMania. And he is the only member in Sanity that's in this tournament. And not that Eric Young's not even in there, and he's the leader of Sanity. Killian Dane, you would think, should be going for the tag team with the other guy in Sanity, but no, he's the only one going for the championship. So it really tells you who they were putting their effort behind in that stable. So like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a call up himself. But anyways, the match was nothing. It was a very short match. You can tell how short it was because they didn't even put a commercial in it. That's how short it was. They had to wait to after to put the commercial in, but yeah, it was very one-sided. Just kind of a squash match, which is disappointing because I feel both those guys could have put on a real good match if they were allowed to. But they weren't allowed to. So we had that, and then it went into another match. This was the no holds barred match between Sonya Deville and Ruby Riott, and that's Ruby Riott with 2 T's now. Why you do that, WWE? Who knows? And while this wasn't a bad match, it certainly wasn't as good as their last one. At least I didn't feel it was. But I thought the last one was just really good, and this one didn't take the step up, I guess. It was probably about the same as the last one, but it's never good to just be about the same as your last match. You should always try to elevate it, or else it kind of gets boring. And it wasn't necessarily boring, but it wasn't really good. I would just rather watch their match last week. Not last week, 2 weeks ago, instead of this one. They even don't really play into the whole no holds bar that well either. There's just really a few things like they can't have rope breaks, so Ruby Riott has to work around that, and I guess that was interesting. But and then there was like an eye gouge at one point, and that's kind of it. So I guess kind of disappointed in the long run. I had really high hopes for that match too. Anyways, after that we have another backstage press conference with Ember Moon. This gets interrupted by the dynamic duo, who demand to have a match against her, because Peyton Royce was saying, "Oh well, you didn't pin me, you pinned Nikki Cross, so I should be, in line for number one contender for the championship." So that ends up getting declared, so they're gonna have a match coming up. And it was fine, I guess. Nothing really to it. once again, I don't see why they couldn't have just done a normal interview style, why they had to do a press conference. But anyways, then we get into the final match of the night, and this was Kassius Ohno. This was also in for the tournament for the number one contenders. Just so you know, this was Kassius Ohno versus Johnny Gargano. Oh, Gargano. I believe I was mispronouncing it in the other review. Gargano. And this started out slow, and I was kind of worried that it was going to be a good match, but when it really got into the flow, it was really, really excellent. Now, do I think those guys could have put on an even better match? Yeah, but this was still very good, and that match was definitely worth it. Really, the only spot in the show that was worth it. But anyways, yeah. So, in that match, Johnny Gargano, Johnny Gargano ends up winning the match, um, which is great because he was kind of on a losing streak. So even the announcers were talking about that, being on a losing streak. So it's good to see him get that win there, and I guess I don't know who's. Well, we know at least one other person that he's going to be facing, killing Dane in the Fatal 4-Way. We'll see who the other guys is. It's kind of looking like it's going to be Lawrence Sullivan's going to be another one. And he announced the other match was going to be Adam Cole versus Alistair Black. So, man, Johnny Gargano is going to look very small against Lawrence Sullivan and Killian Dane there. But, there's high hopes for that. I at least feel they should give it the time, which they really didn't give for most of the matches this episode. They really spent so much time in backstage segments that only one match really had the opportunity to really work. So this episode was definitely not worth it. Watch the last match, but everything else largely just skippable. I mean, unless you really like some of those characters that had the backstage interviews, I wouldn't really bother with it. But anyways, until next week, see ya.